Hey friends, Aram Choe here with the 911 Strong podcast. On this episode of the 911 Strong podcast, we're going to be discussing what it takes to be a police officer. What it takes to get into the backgrounds, what kind of people we're looking for, and what it takes to successfully complete a career in law enforcement. So sit right back, and the next episode of the 911 Strong podcast starts right now.
Station to all units.
Prepare to copy.
You're listening to the 911 Strong podcast.
Don't act like I never told you.
With Aram and Kristen, bringing you stimulating discussion.
No, I like the sound of that.
An entertaining conversation.
And now, here's Kristen and Aram.
Hey friends, welcome to the next episode of the 911 Strong podcast. I am Aram Choe. I'm usually joined by my co-host, Kristen, but she is out on another engagement. So you got me. So I'm going to take this time to answer some questions that I regularly get on my social media platforms. And I thought I would do it in a series. Usually I get questions like, what does it take to become a police officer? Or I'm struggling through backgrounds and I've got this issue and I got DQ'd. And then it ranges all the way up to, hey, I'm in my second year of law enforcement, and how do I successfully make it off training, probation, and get into a specialized unit, and all this stuff. So I thought I'd start, from the very beginning. You can't become a law enforcement officer until you get in. So let's just jump right into what it takes to become a law enforcement officer. Like, who are we looking for? What kind of people are signing up for this job, especially in this day and age? When I was signing up, let's see, it was the late 90s when I was interested in law enforcement, and I finally got into the academy in 1999. Well, back then, they had a hard time, what's the way I want to say this? Recruiting. So it was actually easy. They came to me. I was walking along the main part of the campus at Cal State Los Angeles, and there were some recruiters. There was an LAPD recruiter, a LA Sheriff's recruiter, and one of them snagged me, and lo and behold, he was a good salesman and piqued my interest, and I signed up for the Sheriff's Department. I was young. I was like 21 when I started the process, and I had no background, right? I mean, I haven't lived any life, so at 21 years of age, my background, unless I got in trouble, which I may have, I just may not have gotten caught, but my background was clean, and I had a very limited work experience, so I didn't have time to get fired or disciplined or anything like that at work. So with that said, I went through the background process really fast. I had to lose a little bit of weight. Back then, they had a height-weight scale. And my background investigator said, by the time we get through this background process and by the time you have to get through your physical, you need to lose so-and-so pounds, which is stupid because I've always been heavy for my height, I guess, the height-weight scale. I'm 5'8", and it said something ridiculous like I needed to be 155 pounds. Well, the last time I was 155 pounds, I was probably in junior high. I was a football player. I have a muscular build, and I'm just going to blame it on heavy bones. But in any event, I tried to lose the weight. I was like 190 pounds at the time. And I'm like, dude, how am I supposed to lose 40 pounds to satisfy this height weight requirement? So I got down to like 160, I think. I try to do it as healthy as possible because I knew I had to get through the academy, and I didn't want to get through the academy all like emaciated and have muscles atrophied and stuff. So it was hard, especially if you're continuing to work out. You're not going to lose the weight because you're continually building the muscle. And I didn't have a whole lot of body fat to lose at the time. So luckily for me, when I got to the physical, my background investigator was like, okay, well, good luck. But I knew something she didn't tell me was that an alternative to the height weight scale was the body caliper fat test. So when I went to the hospital or whatever it was, a medical center where they did this physical, I obviously didn't pass the height weight scale. So they took these calipers and they pinched my underarm, they pinched my upper back, my lower back, I guess where my love handles are now. And I met the body fat requirement. I think for guys at the time, you had to be under 18% body fat. And I think for women, it was like under 25% body fat because women naturally carry a higher percentage of body fat. So I lost I passed my physical. I went through the academy. And, looking back as a 21-year-old kid and knowing a lot of 21, even 25-year-olds now, it really took a lot of initiative. So I think that's what one of the first steps is if you're interested in getting through this career is you need to take initiative. The application process in of itself eliminates a lot of people. If you can't figure out how to follow instructions, then this job's not for you, right? So the application is really the first audition to see if you can do this career. If you're got attention to detail, if you can follow instructions and you can follow through. So the application, I think, in of itself is purposely designed to have redundancies in it, and that's why you're constantly repeating things over and over, and it seems frustrating. You don't know why, but at the time I didn't know why, but I figured I just have to do it. And years later, after I became a background investigator myself, I'm like, oh, okay, it's an elimination process. So pay attention. It was not online like it is today. Back then, it was something that you went to headquarters, picked up an application, and it was kind of like this was a test to see who was going to fill it out by pen or pencil or crayon, or who was going to take the time to stick it through a typewriter and type it out. Because think about it, if you're the person reading hundreds and thousands of applications a day, are you going to be the one that's more pleasantly reading an application when it's more pleasant to the eye, right? So yeah, I went out and bought a used Brother typewriter and stuck the paper in there, and I realized quickly the important lesson of picking up a couple applications, because that first one I messed up. So I had to go back to headquarters and I got another one, and then I immediately went to a print shop and I ran like 5 copies of the application. And sure enough, I needed a couple more copies because I wasn't really good at using the typewriter and I wanted the application to look right. So I did that. I must have made a good first impression because after I turned it in, I got a call to go in for my physical agility test, and that was rolling right into the oral interview panel. So let's just say you get through the application process, right? What's next? You're going to get contacted by someone at the department, says, hey, we're going to put you through a physical agility test and oral interview. I mean, both of these subjects can be topics of their own podcasts. I'm going to try to synopsize what you can expect and how you can prepare. So, back then, long distance running was the priority. Like, hey, let's get some mileage under you. Get your 25 pull-ups, 25 push-ups, or whatever the minimum requirement was, 25 sit-ups. It's so different today. Today, it's more high-intensity interval-type training. Sure, you do your distance running. That's really good for you to have throughout this career. Even now at the age of 44, I still do distance running, but I also do high-intensity interval training in the form of jiu-jitsu training. If you've never done any kind of grappling or jiu-jitsu training, for an hour your heartbeat is like a roller coaster. You're sweating from beginning to end. So I mix it up. I also do strength training. I lift weights, which is also good, especially towards the end of your career. You don't want to be looked at as someone that's kind of on their way out and not paying attention to being in optimal physical condition. Because if you think about it, you're an example to the young guys, right? And you want to leave a good legacy behind, a good example for these young guys to follow. So when I had my own patrol team, when I became a sergeant, I used to train with these guys. I used to meet up in the gym early and say, hey, it's time to work out. And if they didn't show up, we gave a lot of razzing and peer pressure for them to show up, because it needs to be done. It's something that should be ingrained. If you think about it, in the academy, half of the time in the academy, you're doing physical training. 50% of the time, you're doing physical training. Why does that all stop after the academy? When you're on field training, or when you are released from training and you're your own patrol officer, the mandated training that we're required to go to, hardly any of it is physical training, which I think is bizarre because it's such a requirement. It's going to save lives. and it's going to keep you healthy. Officers are notorious for developing heart disease, getting fat through cortisol, increased cortisol levels, lack of sleep, lack of poor nutrition, and lack of exercise. So if you're one of those young people starting out in your career, it's not too late. Even if you're one of the old guys in your career, it's not too late. Make those lifestyle changes. It's going to save your life. At the end of the day, you want to live as much as you can while you have that, enjoy that pension, because they're going to pay you till the day you die. You might as well reap the benefits of the career that you spent so long serving. So anyhow, today's academy, the physical agility is, it's going to incorporate basic requirements. The basic requirements vary from state to state. But in California, there's going to be a wall climbing element. Usually there's a solid wall made of either stone or wood. It's like a 6-foot or 8-foot wall. And then there's another wall climb. It's like a chain link fence, which is usually about 5 to 6 feet. It's got a crossbar in the middle, so it's usually easier to climb. There's going to be an obstacle course element where you're making various left and right turns, hopping over small obstacles, maybe crawling, maybe climbing, and then there's going to be a timed, usually it's a mile or a mile and a half. I've seen sometimes where that's timed, and then a body drag. I think the dummy is like 170 or 190 pounds, and then you're supposed to drag that under a certain amount of time or a specified amount of feet. Let's just say 25 feet. That's it. I really wish that they would incorporate some sort of, let's see, like a stressful type environment. Like, when I don't know if you've seen these videos on Instagram and stuff where guys do push-ups or they sprint and then they go back to their firearm and they have to shoot at a target. It's extremely hard to do when you have elevated heartbeat and your blood's flowing and your adrenaline's up. I wish they would do something like that, not necessarily shooting, because we wouldn't expect applicants to shoot or know how to use a firearm. I mean, they should, but we can't expect that. But maybe something that requires some sort of steadiness after, like a sprint or something. I'll have to definitely look into that and see if that can be incorporated somehow. But that's what you can expect. Obviously, you want to be in shape going into it, but you don't have to be in academy shape. And academy shape is a lot different, right? And some people tap out of the academy. It's sad. You put in all this effort to get to the academy, and you don't put the effort to physically train because you have this expectation that the academy is going to get you in shape. That's far from the truth. The people I know that come to the academy to get in shape, they're the first ones to leave. They tap out, they get injured, and they have to start all over again. Get to the academy in shape. You should be running 5 miles at a 10-minute mile pace or better. You should be able to do sprints. You should be able to do 50 push-ups without stopping. You should be able to do 25 sit-ups without stopping. And pull-ups, you should be able to do 10 to 12 pull-ups. And you should be able to climb, if you're a woman, you should be able to climb over a fence. Women have and I think it's mental. I went to the academy with a 42-year-old female, and that was her biggest obstacle. She said, I have a hard time with the fence. I said, why? You can do pull-ups, you can do push-ups. And I think you kind of told yourself you can't do it. I think it's a mental obstacle. And sure enough, it was fight or flight time. It was time for us to do our they call it the California 500. It's like a state mandated test during the middle of the academy. And she did it. She put in so much effort, and she's like, I'm not going to do this. And she did it. So one of the biggest tips I can give for females and males that might struggle going over the fence is to get your leg over. Run up to the fence, get that first step on the wall, and get your hands on the top of the fence or the wall. And don't lock your elbows out. You want to have a slight bend. Use your biceps. Get that, fill it in your lats, fill it in your biceps. Get your hands, get your forearms gripped up, and then get that leg swung over. Once you have that leg swung over, it's really easy to squeeze your legs together, and then you get your arms in position to push, and then you're on top of the wall. So give that a try. I have a video on YouTube that on my YouTube channel 911 Strong that shows a demonstration and instructions on how to do it, and that's been pretty popular. So the point of that whole thing is be physically ready. Now, academically, you want to, if you're not a strong writer, and you're not a strong writer, grammar, your punctuation isn't the best, you might want to invest in taking a college course. You can enroll at your junior college for maybe $500, $300 to $500, which is a lot of money. But, you're talking about your career that you're investing in. So, you can even spend just that much on a private tutor to get your writing going. But writing in police work is chronological, and it's historical, and it's factual. So if you're not used to writing in any of those styles, you're going to have a really, really hard time. I was lucky. I was a journalism communications major. I have my master's degree in public relations, which incorporated a lot of journalism and communications type courses. So my writing was always kind of strong. It's natural to me. Some people have natural ability to do math. I'm not one of those guys. I know what you're thinking. I'm Asian, but I'm, different Asian, I guess. But my writing's always been strong. My vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, all that stuff has always been kind of strong. So if that suits you, then you don't really have to worry. You just have to develop good study habits, because you will study. There's a lot. Hey, think about it. Most academies now are so condensed. They're like, 18 to 20 weeks. Some are 23 weeks, but even then that's really short because of the amount of stuff you have to learn. I mean, you have to learn law, the penal code, the vehicle code, health and safety code, business professions code, and then case law on top of that. You're essentially taking a micro-condensed course, crash course into what lawyers go through. And why? Because you're going to have to be on the stand where these defense attorneys are grilling you, and they're going to try to make you look dumb. And, when it's an officer looks dumb, he loses credibility to the jury, right? And, you work so hard to get these people into custody, and you want to assist the prosecution. You don't want to be the guy that the prosecutor's like, oh, not this officer again. He's horrible on the stand. And so, work on your study habits, clean up on your report writing, and work on that physicality. All right, so once you get through all that, your attitude in the academy is huge. So think about it. The people that want to do this job usually largely are type A, alpha females, alpha males. And you put that amount of personality in one room, that amount of leadership in one room, it's going to be really tempting to want to stand out. My philosophy in the academy is don't stand out. Your job in the academy is not to set yourself out as the alpha dog, right? It's not an audition for sergeant. It's not an audition to get on the SWAT team. Unless you're one of those people that had your eyes set in the very beginning to be honor recruit, which is like the top academic, top physical, top shooter. That's fine, but you can still do that by performance, not with your words. My academy class had like 120 recruits in there. I had a very large academy class at the sheriff's department. And there were some personalities in there that were just like, dude, we know you're cool. We know you're awesome, but you're running your mouth more than you're proving it in actions, right? Because this job is largely about teamwork, being able to get along with others, supporting each other, respecting each other. And you can't do that if you constantly want to be bossing people around or trying to flex your muscle. Everybody, me for instance, in high school I was a captain of the football team all 4 years, and my claim to fame wasn't because I was the best athlete. I definitely wasn't the best athlete, but I had a really good attitude. I was really encouraging, and I tried to motivate others, and that's my personal hallmark for my characteristics. And so you're going to find your own, but you don't want to be the guy whose hallmark or characteristic is known as being the guy that tried to show everybody else up. There's a way you can stand out in your performance and still be humble and encouraging to others. And those are the guys, in my opinion, that are able to balance being bold and being courteous and respectful. So definitely do that. Believe it or not, in the academy I was voted class clown. All right, that's a story for another day. Don't expect to get through the academy unnoticed at the same time. You could be the quietest guy in the class, but the DIs, the drill instructors, the TAC staff, they will pick on everybody because it's a time where they're going to see where your limits are. They're going to see how you're going to react on the streets. On the streets, you're just going to you can be the nicest guy in the world, But the public, you're going to find those in the public, some of them, are just going to give you a hard time because you wear a badge and a uniform, and they could care less if you're the nicest guy in the world. They're going to automatically judge you. So the academy staff is going to prepare you for that, because if you can't get through some of the finger pointing and the yelling at and in your face attitude stuff while you're in the academy, you're not going to get away with it on the streets. There's no way you're going to survive that. So remember that they're going to get in your face. If you are one of those guys that's like a pleaser and it's like, man, they're mad at me, I don't know what to do. No, throw that out of your head. Just understand that they're going to yell at you. They're going to say, you're dumb. They're going to say that you're wearing two different color shoes, even though your shoes are the same color. And you're just going to say, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. They're right. You're wrong. Because in the academy, you're wrong most of the time. And, just get through it. It's fun. Looking back, the academy was so fun. And when you get to that second half of the academy, when the DIs kind of let up a little bit and they relax and they kind of say, hey, this is the downhill slide. You get close to your DIs eventually, and they'll tell you, oh man, I remember that first day we were in your face, you were like this, you were like that. That is kind of cool. But remember the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Getting on that stage, getting badged, and then knowing that for the rest of your career, you have one of the most noble, exciting, respectable jobs there is. And for those of you that are thinking about this career but are on the fence now, then it's going to be kind of harsh for me to tell you this, but if you're on the fence, then this job is not for you. You've got to be 100% on board, because you're going to find that if you're on the fence, at the first sign of resistance that you get, you're going to walk away. You're going to leave this job. And I've seen it time and time again, even from close personal friends of mine that saw how much I enjoyed my job and it was a motivating factor for them to do their job. Well, guess what? When times got tough, they walked away. And it's hard to hear, but at the same time, you did yourself a favor and you did the public a favor. The last thing the public needs or your partner needs is someone that's hesitant to jump into action and do the right thing. If you're one of those guys that cannot engage in use of force in fear of public perception or ending up on YouTube, then this job is not for you, because this job, use of force is expected. It may not be, you might come from an agency where it's not encouraged or looked down upon, which is sad. It shows a lack of a spine for your leadership. But if you come from an agency where they know that you cannot go through this job safely without engaging in use of force to protect yourself and the public, then they've really lost touch in reality. Because this job, I'll tell you, I'm not the most aggressive guy in the world, but you can't avoid it. Some people come attack you. You're not going to stand there to avoid not being on YouTube. You've got to engage, because if they get over you, guess what? Now you've got your weapons he has access to, and what he's going to do with your weapons. You don't want that to happen. Train in something if you don't train already. Jiu-jitsu, boxing, something that involves hand-to-hand combat. You've got to experience what it feels like to have muscle against muscle, force against force, so that when it happens in real life, you're not shocked by it, that you're prepared for it. You know that this is normal, and you're what's the word? Not comfortable, but you're more comfortable. You're not panicking. So that's about it. I think that's about all I want to get into for now, because I want to talk about what it's like to get into field training after you graduate the academy. So if I think I covered most everything I needed to cover about backgrounds and the academy and a kind of a synopsis view. But if you have any specific questions you'd like me to address, hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, DM me, and then I'll, on another episode, address your specific question. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me on this episode of the 911 Strong podcast. Thank you so much for listening and downloading our podcast. We've been in the top 225 in several markets for the last month on Apple Podcasts. So that's super rad. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate your support. You guys are the best, and I'll catch you next time on the 911 Strong podcast. You've been listening to the 911 Strong podcast with Aram and Kristen. If you like this episode, please check out our other episodes, and don't forget to tell your friends. Find us on Instagram and smash that follow button. Thanks again for listening and for your loyal support. See you next time.